Has tipping culture gone too far? Let's find out. So I stumbled across this Daily Mail article, which I know a lot of people think that Daily Mail isn't news. Fine. Okay, just that's not the point of this. But the article is, oh Lord, so it's cut off here, but it's they're calling it greedy waitress chases down customer and calls cops because customer didn't tip her. That's like they need to have a better way of putting that title front and center. But anyways, so according to the story, and I saw this, and you know I've had it happen to me. I wasn't chased by anybody, but I've had it happen to me where I've been coaxed into tipping for whatever reason, and it's like ridiculous. And quite frankly, I'm myself am getting sick and tired of it. Like, you know, I've been on both ends. You know, I've worked for tips, and I've also I've been cornered into tipping. So before I do this article, I want to preface this. On the West Coast, specifically California and Oregon, I'm not sure about Washington, but in California and Oregon, the servers there make minimum wage. Whereas in the bulk of the rest of the country, the servers make sub minimum wage, right? California, I think, is now a $15 minimum wage statewide. I don't know what Oregon is. It's probably 12 to 15. Federal minimum wage is $7.50 still as of recording, I think. But for servers, they can make as little as $2 an hour. So that being stated, and the reason, before I continue, the reason why I bring this up is I've had this discussion with a friend of mine years ago, and he was blown away because he lived on the West Coast his entire life, never really went outside the West Coast, and then he moved to Ohio for a job, and he was blown away by the fact that they were not making minimum wage. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, I don't know if there are other states that, you know, servers are required to be paid minimum wage. I don't know that. But anyways, I wanted to get that out of the way now because I know that conversation is going to come up and people are going to be like, you know, oh, over here, you know, they make minimum wage. I know. Okay. It depends on where you are in the country. Some people make the minimum wage plus the tips, and some people make like $2 an hour plus tips. Okay, so let's just get that out of the way. So with that being stated, I am sympathetic to the server to a point, because I know that like that's like a serious situation, you know, where you're not getting tipped, and it can be very devastating. So the question then becomes, okay, so if in certain places, you know, the staff are not getting, if they don't get tipped, then they're kind of like starving, you know, how do you fix that? Well, I'm not here to try and fix it. At the end of the day, like, that's not how the system works. You know, I personally think that we should get rid of tipping and just be done with it, because it's pointless. And I know that a lot of people use different excuses to get out of tipping. Whatever, fine. In fact, I don't know if anybody here who's watching my videos have seen the movie Waiting. Definitely watch it. Like it's a good movie. One of those early 2000 comedies that like obviously can't be made these days. The one girl, she gets all upset because she has to deal with foreigners, and she's constantly complaining about how they don't tip well. And in the movie, like they're laughing, the foreigners are laughing because they're using the fact that they're foreign to get out of tipping. You know, just ignorance of the system allows them to get away with it in a way. Um, Anyways, like I said, if you get the chance, definitely watch that film. It's great. So let's get into the meat since we're already 5 minutes in. So tipping culture in the U.S. appears to have gotten so extreme that some staff now think it's. Let me reread this. Tipping culture in the U.S. appears to have become so extreme that some staff now think that customers who do not leave a gratuity are breaking the law. Okay, so tipping is an acronym, and again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I appreciate it. I like to learn. But it's to ensure prompt service, TIPS, tips. And the whole point is if the server went out of their way to make sure things were going well, you would give a tip. That's the whole point of it. But now it's just so ingrained that, we hear, oh, if you tip below $15 or 15%, you're rude. Tipping is 15 to 18%. I mean, when I do certain gig work, in the app itself, it will say this customer tends to tip higher than normal, so please ensure that you're doing a better than normal job. And I've never been... Let me think about this. I've only been tipped above and beyond twice on that app, even with those, customers that allegedly tip higher. Out of, I think it's a little over 50 runs now that I've done on one app. I can't do another app. I used to do a different app, but I can't do that one anymore for various reasons. So, like, in my situation, if you're a delivery driver, there's really not much you can do. Like, you go to site, you pick up the order if it's ready on time, which, yesterday was Halloween. I'm recording this on the 1st. I had a really rough experience at a pizza place where their system went down. I felt so bad for those people, but the system went down. So, they're trying their hardest to go as quickly as they can, and people are getting angry. You got, the delivery people on one end, you got the customers on the other end. The customers are getting mad because their orders are taking forever. You got, there was one guy who's a delivery driver. He was waiting for an hour. I think I waited about 40 minutes. And the one order that I had, the lady was expecting it for a party, and the party ended. And I just felt so awful about it, but really, what can I do? I can't tell them, hey, my order's more important, because you got 20 people in that lobby that barely can hold 10, all waiting for the same exact thing. So the thing that I could do was be patient and just wait, right? All that for $7. And it was 2 orders that I had to do. But like, beyond that, all I can do is take their order, take it with me to site. If anything, the people in that restaurant who were struggling to maintain and getting yelled at and all that, they're the ones that deserve the tip, not me. You know what I mean? Granted, I only got $7 out of the deal. I didn't get a tip or anything like that. I don't think. I'd have to check. And quite frankly, even if I knew, I probably wouldn't tell you the full story, because that would dox me, and I don't want to be doxed. But where was their tip? The pizza place, because they're working their hearts out trying to make sure people were getting their pizzas and all that stuff. I guarantee you, a lot of them didn't want to be there. Now, I will, in good fairness, because I try to be fair as possible. They had a bunch of orders back there. They should have been calling out order numbers. Saying, hey, order 161, 162. And that little girl, she would just walk up to people and be like, what order did you get? And then she'd go back there and look, and then another person would distract her, so she'd go back, and another, like, she was just going back and forth, and, like, just start shouting, oh, pardon me. Just start shouting orders. That's all you had to do. You know? So she'd call out a number. I started helping her because I don't know if you watched Police Academy, but she reminded me of Hicks. You know, and it was funny because it was, you know, an African American woman built like Hicks, and so she'd go, "What was your order?" And I'd be like, "Oh God, just please, it's order 161 and 162." She'd be like, "Okay, I'll check," and then someone would grab her, right? And it was always the ones that obviously were not born here that would just like grab her and just shove their phone right in her face, you know, like, "Hey, this order, please, this order." And it's like, you guys gotta just relax, you know? Like, honestly, the whole like Uber Eats, DoorDash, that kind of culture has really started a wave of rudeness. Like, I've seen people who are delivery drivers, they'll walk into the kitchen and grab the food and walk out, and meanwhile the employees are screaming at them, "Hey, you can't be back here, you can't do that, blah 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 blah." And it's like, you know, like, I don't know what's going on, man. Anyways, I'm sorry about the tangent. So the staff now think that customers who do not leave a gratuity are breaking the law. No, that's not true. There's no law that says you have to leave a tip. Okay, shut up. So this is based on a viral video, and I know these articles that I'm kind of going through are a little older. I wanted to talk about this last week, but I got swarmed. So, but the fact that the reason why I brought this one up specifically is, where do these people think they're getting off? You know, you chase a man down and you demand more money from him. Like, if anything, that's the criminal act. You know, so in this video, the guy left the restaurant. You know, he's got kids with him, and he didn't tip. Okay, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's well within his right. He didn't have to tip. Or if he really wanted to be a jerk about it, he could have left 1 penny. You know, that's the fun one. You know, because that shows that you could have tipped, but because their service was so bad that you just left them 1 penny. You know. So the bartender and server chased after the customer. So they literally leave the property, chase the customer down in their personal vehicle, and block his car with their vehicles, demanding he tip properly. That's sick. And a crime. You know, and the reason why I'm bringing up the whole criminal aspect is, I'll just read it here. One of the staff filming at the scene can be heard saying, "My brother is a cop. You got to go back there now, bro. Seriously." So not only are you basically holding this man hostage, that's really what it is, because it's a 2-on-1 situation. He's got kids, including a baby. So already he's in fear for their life. And you bring up the fact that your brother's a cop. Like, where do these two people get off? You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, honestly, these people, you know, they need to be fired, removed, whatever. Okay. But the fact that they feel that they can do this because their brother's a cop, you know, let's start that conversation. No one even brought that up, honestly. Why? And I know why. It's because everybody agrees with that statement, which is, you know, just because your brother is a cop doesn't make you anything. You know, If anything, that just looks way worse on you. But I digress. And then of course here's an image from that video. I'm not gonna play the video at all, but it shows he barely got enough. I don't know why it's gonna say he barely has enough to feed his family. He was cornered and the cops were called. And then of course there was the whole like they're bringing politics into it because apparently like the dude's a Democrat and the servers are Democrat. Like, what does that matter in this grand scheme of things? If they were all Republicans, would this story be covered the exact same way? Like, seriously, what does it matter? This whole situation is just stupid. And then, of course, there's the whole reaction from the internet, which whatever. Okay, the fact is I've heard the whole, if you can't afford to tip, then you can't afford to eat out. Okay, I've heard that, and I've been in situations where, I've had enough to like go out, but I didn't really have enough to go out and tip, so I don't go to certain restaurants because of that. If I go to a place where I'm expected to tip, and, just that statement alone is crap. I'm expected to tip. But the problem is like, there are certain places where you're not really expected to tip and they're asking for tips. Like, where is that line at? Okay, let's take a scenario that just popped in my mind. Subway. So Subway's over here, and then you got McDonald's over here. Subway, for some ungodly reason, you're expected to tip. McDonald's, you're not. In fact, at McDonald's, you're not. There's no place to tip. But Subway, it pops up on the little crud pad, and in some places they've actually like they covered the part where, because it's a touchscreen, you can't touch the no tip button. So you have to select a different button. And then there have been places where like the minimum tip is 20%. Like I said, I am very sympathetic in certain instances, but like, where does that end? There have been some places where like, if you're going to go do like a pickup, you're expected to tip there. And it's like, what are you really tipping for? I buy a soda and I'm expected to tip. And it's like, what? Of course I'm not going to tip in that. I don't know. Like, I'm very sympathetic to waiters and waitresses, specifically service industry staff. I've been there. I've worked in restaurants, back of house. I have also worked in front of house in very limited capacity. But, there are scummy owners out there that do some of the weirdest stuff. In fact, I don't know if you may have seen the show Malcolm in the Middle, but they actually did a whole episode on that, where they go to, I think it's a Chinese restaurant, and they have a little plaque up front that says gratuity included in check, right? But it's intentionally covered. And so like they've gone to this place for years, and Lois finds out that they've been double tipping for years, and she flipped out over that. Which, honestly, if I had gone to a place for years and found out that they were double tipping me like that, I'd be livid too. But, and this is kind of my issue with the restaurant industry as well, is a lot of owners are dirtbags. Like, they are some of the cheapest, evilest people you'll ever meet in your life. And I don't know what it is about the restaurant industry that just attracts some of the worst people in the world. Some serious degenerates. I'm not saying all of them. There are some saints out there. But like, especially the owners. The owners can be like some very vicious, evil people. And I guess maybe, in order to get to where you are, where you own a restaurant, you have to be vicious. I don't know. Maybe that's what it boils down to, is just oh God, what is that principle called, where like like a certain kind of person just happens to rise up. Oh God, I can't remember now. It's like bias something. Oh, that's gonna drive me nuts now. Anyways, point is the most unethical people in the restaurant industry tend to rise up, whereas like those who they're in it for not quite the right reasons, they tend to leave. I don't know. I don't know. Like the restaurant industry, like as a whole, is just like toxic. That's why I personally just couldn't stand it anymore. I've got burns on my arms from working in the restaurant industry, and I just, I went for a specific reason. I got what I wanted out of it, and I left because I saw just the constant drama, the constant issues. Some of those people just. They deserve each other. I know there's some people that watch my videos regularly. They used to work in the restaurant industry too. They could probably attest to that, but every experience is different. Like I do like watching. God, what's the dude's name? Kenji. He's got a YouTube channel. He's apparently a very big chef. Like on the lines of like Gordon Ramsay. But he has this YouTube channel where he cooks in his home kitchen. And it's very fascinating to watch because like he'll wear like the GoPro, and then he has a couple of other GoPros, and he just cooks his family dinner, and that's his content. And he did show one of his restaurants. Like it was during the 2020 incident. And he walked in, and obviously they were doing just to-go orders. Like they had just opened up just as the incident was happening. But he showed like the concepts. It was very interesting to watch. Like if you guys get the chance to, definitely watch Kenji. You'll learn something definitely. So, anyways, I'm at 20 minutes. I will ask that like. Find out if you go to a place, right? First off, ask about the gratuity, okay? And usually, you get big parties, it's tacked on onto your bill. Like if you're at a party of 8, it's an automatic 15% gratuity. If that's the case, then yeah, don't pay tips. Like it's already included in the bill. But like if you're on the West Coast where even the servers make state minimum wage. In my view, that's perfectly okay if you don't tip there. But like if you're in another state where the server's making like $2 an hour, as much as I hate to say it, like unless they're really treating you bad, please tip, because they are hurting. But at the same time, it really depends on the place too. Like if the place is happening and hopping and hooting and hollering, then yeah, maybe if they treat you like dirt, don't tip. I don't know, but don't feel obligated, okay? If there's like this presence where if you don't tip, you're gonna get chased down by a couple of people in their car, like this woman chased this dude down. Like, you know what? I'm gonna move this. I don't want people looking at her like that. If you're gonna get chased down, then don't do it. Like honestly, forget these two people that chased down this dude. They should be in jail, honestly. And the fact that she's like, oh, my brother's a cop, you got to go back there. Like, that's even worse. It's not like she wasn't saying that as, oh, you're breaking the law. She was saying that as, oh, if you don't go back, he's going to make your life hell. Like, that's really what the implication is. And that's why I don't like this specific article. So, yeah. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. And please, if you enjoyed it, like and subscribe. And, there's a bell too. Click the bell if you're watching on YouTube. I don't know what the equivalent on Rumble is, but every little bit helps. Okay? So have a good day.